Hello and welcome to the final video in this educational series on warrior cats and ecology. I saved this video for last because it's a bit of a doozy. There is a lot of ground to cover and it's a topic that can get feathers ruffled if it's not done nicely. All I ask is that no one starts any fights in the comments, please and thanks. I don't want to discourage learning opportunities, but I also don't want problems. Once again, this is for a college project, so all sources will be displayed on screen, in the credits at the end, and in the description. Part 1. What is the management of a species? Wildlife management is something that scientists do to help keep ecosystems in check. It often includes a whole lot of land surveys, monitoring, research, pushing for policy, all that jazz. It's doing what's best for the environment and for humans to coexist. Here in the US, we have this thing called the North American Model that sums up how we view and treat wildlife management. It's based on 7 principles, which some of the most important bits of it being that wildlife is a public resource, it's government managed, and our policies should be based on science. In the case of feral cats, management features ways to both keep them in check and protect other animals in the area that might need protection. One thing I'd like people to keep in mind is that we just don't want extinctions, and we should be focusing on how to preserve native species and biodiversity. Remember, people who spend years studying to be wildlife biologists love animals. No one gets into this field because we want to be mean to animals. So, what does Warrior Cats have to say for itself with this topic? You could probably guess, same with most else. Just about nothing. Perhaps even less so than other ecological concepts, because this is a lot of focus on humans and policies. We don't have time to get into that in Warriors. I touched on it in the video on disturbances, that the destruction of the Old Forest in the New Prophecy doesn't seem to feature any surveys of the area. No one seems to care there's 100 cats out in the forest, or that there's any other animals out there for that matter. In Dawn, I have truly no idea why they're out there catching cats. Which leads us into Part 2. Real-life cat management overview. To start, what are some issues we have with feral cats? Wherever humans go, we bring domesticated animals with us, and both of us can harm wildlife. So, a bit on introduced and invasive species. An invasive species is a species that's not native to an area and it's doing a lot of damage to the ecosystem. We talked in the prey video a bit about extinctions and super predators, particularly how there's been a lot of research into cats being bad for hunting wildlife. Cats, particularly kitty pets, may surpass carrying capacity due to supplemental feeding, shelter, and medical care, making them not so influenced by the environment. Cats are eating billions of mammals and birds per year and contributing to potential extinctions and extirpations around the world, especially on islands. Islands are what gets brought up a lot because the animals there might be susceptible to super predators. Some non-cat examples include mongooses, rats, and dogs. Cats are listed by the IUCN as contributing to the extinction of 22 species of birds, 9 mammals, and 2 reptiles on islands, continuing to threaten another 38, as of this publication from 2013. Just because they're a big problem on islands doesn't mean that they're not a threat on the mainlands too. Don't forget, islands aren't just caused by water, but also habitat fragmentation. Next, cats can carry disease, both to people and other animals, including other house cats. Some examples include parasites and things like ticks, lice, fleas, ringworm, plus things like toxoplasmosis, rabies, plague, feline leukemia, and feline immunodeficiency virus. No matter what we do in response, it can be difficult. Remember, ecosystems are complex and often delicate. And the cost of invasive species is monetary as much as it is environmental. Remember, it costs money to do all the fixing and maintenance. Plus, in the case of places that rely on tourism with native species, having those species decimated by cats isn't something you want. That's going to start affecting the economy there. In the books, you don't get a ton of these negative things cats can cause, but one thing I do remember was in Pine Star's Choice. Back when he was younger, ThunderClan did raids on Two Leg Place, where they were putting kitty pets in their place. That's an example of some of the danger feral cats can cause for owned cats. So, what methods are in place for dealing with feral cats? First, let's make some distinctions. There's commonly 3 ways to distinguish cats. There's companion/owned cats, strays, both managed and unmanaged, and feral cats. Owned cats are kitty pets. They have people caring for them all the time, whether or not they're allowed to roam outside of their house. Cats that may be outdoor-owned cats or indoor-outdoor-owned cats are referred to as free roaming. These are cats like Princess. Strays are cats that don't have an owner, but they might have been owned cats once, and they're usually good with people, or people will care for them sometimes. These are cats like Sasha and Millie. And then feral cats, which are often unsocialized to humans. In theory, this is any warrior, but we'll challenge that a bit later. I will preface this section by saying that I won't be showing or saying anything too graphic. but some of these control methods are lethal. If you really don't want to hear about it, here's a few timestamps to keep in mind. There's no one option to dealing with feral cats. Perhaps there's no best option either. The traditional control option has been euthanasia, but now there's also poisoning and trap, neuter, return, shortened to TNR. Or the longer, very similar process of trap, test, vaccinate, alter, return. Disclaimer as well that all of these methods are not for the general public. Control methods are to be done by government wildlife officials or organizations approved to carry this out. Option 1, TNR. It's often done along with giving cats tipped or notched ears to indicate that they went through the process and are sterilized. For the record, sterilization, desexing, spaying, and neutering are all the same thing, and I'm just using them interchangeably based on what the article I'm referencing uses. TNR is used to dwindle populations over time, while also not allowing new groups to move in because all the cats are still there. It can work pretty well with adoption to bring the cats out of the wild populations, though. TNR studies have found that in the US, 50 to 90% of the cats in the colonies were feral cats, though it neglects to mention if the rest are free roaming or strays. Sounds like a pretty good solution without really doing much harm to the cats, right? Well, it may not help as much as we want to think it does. Consider, it's very difficult to TNR every cat in a population. You have to keep doing it somewhat regularly, and because the cats are being returned, they're still out and able to cause damage. It costs money to get all this done, and most programs rely solely on donations. It's also stressful for the cats. They have to be rounded up, put through surgery, and tossed back. These cats, once put back, are still subject to vehicle collisions and animal attacks. Fed cats are more likely to interact and spread parasites and disease to each other, humans, and owned cats. Supplemental feeding sites can also attract animals like skunks and raccoons. It's really hard to say if these cats are even in good health or body condition out in their colonies. TNR is slow, but eradication is not. Eradication is a lot of work and money, but it might be the fastest and most effective method. Reminder that if you didn't want to hear about some of this, here's your call to skip to this time. So, option 2, the lethal ones. Let's start with poisoning. Like most eradication methods, it works best on small islands, and not so much on the mainlands. It's much easier when there's no people or non-target species around. A non-target species being anything that is not intended to eat the poison. A common method is to insert poisons into some meat and then scattering the meat around in an area. Another is through a spray that gets onto their fur, so when they lick it off it gets into their systems. These are intended to work in a couple hours or so. Then there's euthanizations. Many cats that are trapped and removed have to be euthanized because they don't make good companion animals, or some might be too ill or injured and organizations can't afford to care for them. Biological controls are also an option. It's anything like introducing parasites and disease, or using predators to take care of the cats in a somewhat more natural way. In addition to all that, I wasn't really able to find any studies on it, but I do know that there's some policies of cat killing that allows for shooting them. And what methods are being used in the books? Well, let's take a look at the cats in the New Prophecy. Graystripe, along with some of the other cats temporarily, aren't sterilized or taken to a shelter, they're just placed into someone's home. Graystripe is actually shown to get along with the humans and kids just fine, which is more like a stray than a wild-born feral cat. Talltail does the same thing when he's caught. They're just rehomed and they get back out later. It's almost TNR, and yet nowhere close. Literally, who are these people taking the cats, though? Are they the construction workers that are just like, cool, my cat now? Do they really not care? Because if the goal was in any way to actually round up the cats, they did a really bad job. Even the cats they did catch got out. Evidently, I had forgotten the workers poisoned rabbits, and that was a problem the cats faced. Honestly, it would have been interesting for the cats to deal with a mass poisoning, but considering how human-like they are, they might be too smart to fall for it for very long, and I think that might be a little outside of HarperCollins' marketing range, and a bit upsetting to read. On top of all that, SkyClan. Modern SkyClan is made up of a lot of kitty pets turned daylight warriors. It's a prime example of how letting your cat out can lead to them getting hurt, breeding, and killing a lot of wildlife. No one is controlling that, which brings us into the next topic. Part 3, the public opinion. So people tend to have pretty strong opinions on cats. They're popular companion animals. Views on cats and how to manage them can vary greatly based on a person's personal background, culture, and the government or animal welfare organization's involvement. We're not really talking about culling yet, but because of human attachment, it's something difficult to talk about. It's difficult to manage feral and stray cats where there's a lot of humans. People like cats, and even if they do like cats, it doesn't mean they're willing to police their own pets. The main thing to keep in mind with public opinion is that sometimes the public just isn't aware of how big of a deal it is, and in turn, some don't care enough to hear it. So another moment of book talk. We're not really sure where Warriors takes place. We know the Old Forest is based on the UK, and the Lake Territories are some made-up place. It's likely got more of an American influence due to the mountain lion and possibly American badgers. And let's not forget about the SkyClan Daylight Warrior situation. People really don't seem to mind their cats leaving their property, and in cases like Rusty, never coming home. Well, what do specific countries think? A study in 2016 surveyed people in the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, separate from the mainland US because they're islands with a cat problem for native animals, Japan, and China about their opinions on feral cats. It found that for the most part, people agreed that cats killing wildlife in cities, towns, and rural areas was a problem. However, even though people want to preserve wildlife, it seems like no one wants to take the responsibility to do so. In addition, most people felt that the cats on farms or in nature reserves aren't that much of an issue. Except for people in Australia and New Zealand, but they have some strict wildlife policies we're not talking about yet. For each of the next examples I have, there's only one study per country, so take everything with a grain of salt, but the results should still be pretty accurate overall. As for specifically the UK, in one survey of owners featuring 348 cats in 211 households, first of all, cats were most perceived to be a nuisance to those who don't own cats. Though 51% thought that cats had a small effect on local bird populations, 16% thought that they had no effect. The general public seems to be alright with the idea of collars, but owners not so much. Collars are usually used in Warriors to denote a kitty pet, but in the study it found 71% of the cats studied didn't wear a collar, 28% of which from a concern for the cat's safety, 28% because the cat had shed a collar at some point and the owners hadn't replaced it, and 26% had removed the collars due to injury or distress. We touched on the idea of cats being a problem in the prey video, but it's just really hard to estimate the percent of prey killed or the effect that cats can have when most of what you can do is just based off models and educated guesses. Owners are seeing what their cat actually brings in, and while they often overestimate how much the cat does, they also tend to not think about the impact of cats as a whole in that area. 70% of the cats in the study were permitted to roam day and night. 36% of owners said confining the cats to the garden or yard is okay, 16% said that there should be a daytime curfew, 16% said that there should be a ban for cat ownership. The amount of people who agreed to cat banning increased to 45% if the ban area were someplace ecologically sensitive. As for a US survey, a survey was performed at a Texas university where they sent surveys to 1,000 people. However, only 494 forms were returned. Of those that didn't do it and provided a reason, 90% said it was because they had a lack of knowledge or interest in the subject. One of the main results of the study was, quote, "While respondents in this study recognized the predatory impacts of cats on wildlife species in natural areas and on campus, they did not believe the cat's exotic status or its predation on wildlife was a legitimate reason for controlling population numbers." End quote. Basically, people acknowledge, hey, I know cats can be bad for wildlife, but I don't think that they're bad enough we have to do anything about it. I know this is supposed to be an unbiased look, but one of the quotes from a person who returned a survey had me internally screaming since I read it, which was, quote, "In natural areas, such as wildlife areas and forest, I think cats are as much of the natural order of things as any other animal." End quote. No, they are not, because humans are the ones who put them there, and as this entire video has been explaining, cats can, and often do, cause problems. Although, consider, cats make abysmal campus life a little bit better when you see one. I hear people talk about seeing or taking care of the feral cats on my campus sometimes. I did a project in one of my classes where we set up wildlife cameras, and it was kinda nice to see a feral cat show up, because people just like cats, even if it's not something that we wanted to see. As for Australia and New Zealand, cats are dangerous because they're a threat to many native species like some bilbies, bitongs, and bandicoots. A 2017 study was performed in person in New Zealand of 1,016 people, with some results pretty close to other countries in terms of mindset that it's not my cat, although the people here agreed on management including desexing, microchipping, and registration. For owned cats, people tend to think that they shouldn't be indoors, but there's also a lot of agreement they should be somewhat managed. The method with the most agreement was to limit the number of cats a household could have. For non-owned cats, the majority of people voted for TNR for cat colonies. For unmanaged strays, the majority voted TNR, but it was very close with lethal methods. For feral, most people voted lethal methods. 78% of people were in agreement for a national strategy to deal with the cats, which is all fine and good, but then it's legislation you have to deal with. And just because people are in agreement something should be done, doesn't mean they'll do it themselves. While 66% agreed cats should be microchipped, only 31% of cats are based on the national average. Part 4. Feral cat management. What are these countries doing about cats then? Well, it's kinda hard to say. Individual places can use any of the methods for control, or none at all, and not everything warrants a big scientific paper for me to be citing here. I'm also giving out the warning I'll be mentioning lethal control methods again, so if you really don't want to hear about the real applications of them, here's where you can skip to. A UK example is that of the eradication of cats on Ascension Island. It's a place in the Atlantic Ocean under British control. They had all pet cats sterilized, microchipped, and given reflective collars. Owners were told cats that were outside during the eradication process were at risk of ingesting poison or being shot. Australia is the big one here when it comes to feral cat control. Like I said, they have some important species to protect. Some solutions from the National Cat Management Strategy include cat exclusion zones, where people can't own cats or specifically outdoor cats due to sensitive wildlife concerns. Having fewer cats per household, as well as cat curfews where they need to be home by a certain time. Desexing, microchipping, and registration, which make them less likely to contribute to the feral populations through breeding or getting lost. TNR, and culling, including poisoning, kill trapping, etc. Another paper mentioned making use of cat exclusion zones, also citing fences are being used in some places of mainland Australia, but they're costly and require maintenance. As well as poisons, which can also be used for invasive foxes and dogs, distributed by airplane, by hand, or in the spray-on variety. Though this could be bad for some native species too, or cause food web issues like the poisons killing foxes and dogs allowing for more cats in the area. And then shooting and trapping, which is labor intensive, the traps might not catch only cats, and shooting is done more for specific problem animals. Other options we didn't really talk about at some earlier point include habitat management, where things like fire and grazing management can help out prey species, managing the food supplies, such as keeping feral cats out of waste facilities, which you may remember from video 1 was a great place for cats. Rabbits are also a problem species in Australia, and while too many rabbits might cause a lot of cats, too few rabbits might cause cats to switch to a new prey that includes a vulnerable species. Working with trophic cascades, because dingoes can compete with or kill cats, maybe we should have more dingoes, but the interaction web is tricky, and new lack of cats or presence of dingoes could cause their own problems. And the idea of guardian dogs. They're more used to help protect livestock, but you know, we can always train dogs against cats, it sounds like it makes sense. Lastly on this example list, the case of Dirk Hartog. It's an island off Western Australia. The area is primarily controlled by aerial poisoning, so long as it doesn't get any non-target species. By taking a genetic analysis of these cats, they were able to tell about how often new cats were brought into the island or between populations, determining they probably hadn't had much new blood in recent years. And if you took them all out now and prevented any immigration, it should do the trick to eradicate them. In addition to all that, I found some PDFs from the Australian government on some plans for managing cats. There's both a fact sheet on their plans and an FAQ. It's dated back to 2015, but I'll leave them in the description to check out if you're interested. Part 5. Conclusions and what can be done. Wow, that was a lot. And so, what can be done about feral cats then? What's the takeaway about all this? I leave you with the one thing I hope people take away from this series. Educate. A lot of times what people don't know about how ecology works can be dangerous. I too am guilty of seeing stray cats and going, ah, kitty, baby, pss, 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 pss. But I know it's bad. I don't think that cat should be outside. It's dangerous out there. If you're a cat owner, or you can impart some of this to cat owners, there's ways you can control your own cats. Try early age desexing, targeted adoptions for those cats that can be adopted out, general responsible cat ownership, and taking the initiatives to educate your community on some of these problems. I hear people make arguments about their cats needing to go outside, but they really don't. Try giving your cat more up-high places to be and more things to play with inside. They might just be bored. If you insist on an indoor-outdoor cat, you can leash train them and take them out yourself. Or get them a cat run or catio so they're still safely on your property. You're doing good for your neighborhood animals and for your own cat to minimize the chances of disappearance, injury, or any number of things. Remember that keeping cats indoors helps against injury from other cats, dogs, mesopredators, vehicles, and StarClan forbid, even humans. As cool as Rusty joining ThunderClan is, it's not realistic in the slightest, and it can be bad for wildlife, cats, and people. If helping cats have a better quality of life is something you're passionate about, maybe also consider volunteering or donating to local shelters and organizations. We put cats in the wild, and we have to be the ones to fix it. Even if Warrior Cats romanticizes it. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this series, and who knows, maybe I'll pick it up again in some capacity in the future. Until then, this has been a series on warrior cats and ecology, and I hope you learned something new. I'd love to see any of these concepts expanded upon in AU's or Warriors fan clan stories.